funny story I remember from that. I guess it was opening ceremonies, and I don't know who it was. It might have even been Columbia coming out, and they had these dress shirts on, right? These kind of fancy dress shirts with, like, I don't know, polka dots and all this stuff all over
Polka
it.
dots.
I remember Donnie saying, "I really like those shirts." So anyway, never thought no more of it, right? So then we win the final day, and we all go back to the hotel. We shower up. We got a few beers. I was just Danny with one of these shirts on. He must. He made a trade with somebody.
Get up! Get up! Get out of here! I told you, Mr. Drama.
I used to be a ladies' man, but I'm a man now. For courting 6 girls all at once, they used me.
Say bye-bye baseball!
My mother said it was naughty, I should kiss her back. But I said if it's naughty, sure it's also very fun.
And the Wally drops his glove, grabs Dalton. The benches are clearing.
Dust Up with Hilly and Lolly is brought to you by CoolBet. If you got a few extra bucks rattling around in your arse pocket, CoolBet Sportsbook will double your first deposit up to $200 when you use the bonus code DUSTUP. Head over to coolbet.com and get in on the fastest growing entertainment sector in the world. That bonus code again is DUSTUP, one word, all capital letters, DUSTUP. Welcome back, folks. Episode 25 of Dust Up with Hilly and Lolly. And Hilly, we are back at it again after a few weeks off, playing some tournaments. Actually got you over to the house, you and Marcia, this past weekend after our tournament in Tavistock. You got to meet Lucas and Nick in person for the first time, and that was pretty cool. Before we get into our guests, that was a great weekend of ball, and got to wrap up around the pool there on Sunday.
Yeah, it was nice. I got to take my wife with me, and which she hasn't got to see a ball tournament now, I guess, since pre-COVID sometime for years. So she's been chomping at the bit to get away. But everything just, the weekend worked out perfect. We played a ball tournament. We didn't win it. So other than that, the weather was good. Got to meet the boys, had some beverages, and the girls got to take in a concert. Travel was smooth, man. It was perfect. Perfect weekend.
Excellent. And then we knew that we'd be back recording episodes this week. Excited to get back on here. And we got an awesome guest tonight with 4-time ISC champ, 3-time ASA champ, 3-time Canadian champ, and the 2012 Pan American champion pitcher, Donnie Scott, coming on with us. What a gamer he was, man, back in the day. And what a beauty do we have coming on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about guys who go balls to the wall and leave it on the field. Donnie Scott has to come near the top of that list. Never mattered to him who the opponent was, who the batter was. You knew what you were getting with Donnie Scott, game in, game out.
Yeah, and you hear people talk about big heart, gamer, always wants the ball, and heart and soul of the team have everybody's back. That was Donnie Scott, one of the best guys you could ever play for, and a guy that got it done when all the chips are on the table. So, without further ado, Donnie Scott. Hilly, Donnie Scott tonight. You know what's great about this? Doing it on Zoom and not in person? We don't got to shake his friggin' hand here to start this episode. What? Hardest handshake in the game, Hilly.
Well, that's what I told Donnie this week, and I said, we're going to have to start hugging.
Yeah. You break your back, you don't need to go to the chiropractor then, Hilly. Just give Donnie a hug after seeing him for a couple of years. Donnie, what's going on, buddy? Thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
It's a pleasure. Not a lot going on around here. Just trying to stay out of this weather tonight.
I know, man.
You're in Stratford, Donnie?
Yeah, not too far. Just about 10 minutes outside of Stratford.
Cool.
No, that's excellent, too, this time of year, getting you out around the ball field. We saw you, when was it? We saw you this past weekend, and we saw you at the Hill tournament, and then bringing the boys out, and it's just awesome seeing around the park. It just brought a little bit of the old days back. We saw you. We saw Opie Fairman out at the Simcoe tournament. It's just great to see all the guys around that we played with, and just seeing the beer tent alive again.
Yeah, that's the nice thing for me, right? Like, everything's pretty close from where I live for all the tournaments. I mean, my farthest drive is Simcoe for sure, and it's just over an hour. And then Kitchener for me is 40 minutes. Tavi this past weekend's 20 minutes. It's all real close.
Yeah, that's excellent. And Hilly, we see him at the first tournament of the year. First thing he said, okay, Donnie, we're going to line this podcast up. You want to do it on Wednesday? He's like, no, I'm pitching Wednesday night.
He just gets Keaton called back to the mound, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Tell us how this came about, Donnie. Let's start there. You're back out on the mound hucking it?
I always wanted to play in the Masters once. So this year I was asked to go into the Masters Canadians. So I thought, well, might as well. I'll do it while I still can. And that's basically what started me throwing a little bit. I started throwing with my kids' team. So I coach a U20 team, and we went into a men's league. So I was a little short pitchers. So I got on the mound for, well, probably the first 3 or 4 games I was pitching with the kids' teams.
3 or 4-0.
We lost 1 out of it, but yeah. The kids think that I should be throwing the league tournament now, and I'm like, no.
So does this mean you're coming to Newfoundland for the Masters?
Yeah.
Cool.
See, that's wicked.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to see you a lot this summer, Donnie. And no, it's
well, I'm going to see us in Kitchener too.
Yes, absolutely. You're not playing in that one.
Masters tournament's on that weekend.
Oh, there's a Masters on that weekend out there too. That's excellent. I love when they do that, whether it's Masters and the ISC major, or it's the juniors and the senior Canadians at the same time, like they did out at the Grand Slam. And just the more people that can be around the ballpark, and then there's different generations either that have looked up. A lot have gotten to play with the guys that are in the Masters, like Hilly and myself. Now we're kind of the older guys on the circuit, but we get to see everybody on those weekends, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of what I look forward to. That's one of the other reasons I do it. I thought I could give it a try, so I thought, what the hell? Get back at it, and I try to throw 3 or 4 innings a week, nothing major, just enough to keep you in shape to go out and pitch.
Like Hilly over there. Just a couple innings a week. He's pitching 2 games. He only gets through 2 or 3 innings.
It's 2 games, but I'm still only trying to pitch 3 or 4 innings a week. That's right. Ask Colin Welsh. He knows all about it. You're in, young fella.
Well, Donnie, you got a little bit left in the tank, because I'm looking down, and you didn't really make that jump into ISC pitching at a top level. You were intermediate local until you're what, late 20s, 29, I think.
Yeah, I wrote that. I started in 2003 with Kitchener.
And so before that, what was it? Just primarily?
Mostly intermediate ball.
But you were pitching your whole life, right?
Yep. Started pitching when I was 4. My older brother pitched, so got to do what he did. So
yeah.
I started when I was about 4 years old, and when I shut her down in Kitchener in 2018. So that was 40 years.
Did you ever hit, Donnie, as well? Like, are you like one of these guys with Todd Martin always got a bat in his bag, or?
Well, you got to keep your bag straight somehow. I still have a bat in my bag, but yeah, no, I hit until I went to junior. Okay. So once I started playing junior, then they didn't allow me to hit anymore.
No.
And all this with your local Sebringville guys?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wicked. And how was the junior career coming up? Did you guys compete? And because I know you're intermediate mostly out in that area, but when you went to, say, junior nationals, did you go there? How did you guys fare out?
So we only qualified 1 year. Like, you got to remember, when we qualified for the juniors, there was 46 teams in the junior eliminations in Ontario.
Insane. So
to get out of Ontario was really hard. So we ended up getting out the 1 year, and we went to Summerside PEI. Now, we didn't medal or anything there. I think we ended up 5th.
Really? Jeez,
yeah.
To be able to come out of that in Ontario, it just showed the strength of the junior ball circuit right across the country at that point in time, right? And that really, we've talked to a lot of guys from your era, Red and Todd Martin, Colin Abbott, Wolfie, and these guys, and just how great the ball was back then. And that really paved the way for how healthy the senior circuit got in the late 90s, early 2000s, and what we selfishly call on here the heyday, right? When you had so many.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. The amount of ball that was around our area, our local South Perth League that I played in for many years, when I first started playing in that, I was like, I don't know, 18 or 19. And there was 24 teams within half an hour of my house.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's nuts, right? And I know how important the grassroots part of the game is for you, and you got to see that firsthand growing up. I love hearing stories about that, sharing it with our listeners, because everyone's talking about how can we get back to that? How can we grow the game? What's a formula? Or is there a magic formula? But what was your experience coming up through the grassroots? What was the league like? Did you have any people in your corner to help develop you, push you? What was that whole thing like for you?
So I started off in Sebringville at, like I say, 4 or 5 years old. And when we went to our first, mite, I guess it was called then, I played with Jody. So Jody and I lived half a mile from each other, basically.
Really?
So we'd bike back and forth to each other's houses all the time, throwing stick balls, doing whatever, right? Just playing. But it was kind of funny. When we first started playing, if I gave up a hit, Jody would run from shortstop out to the outfield to pick it up, and then I would run to the cutoff and see if we can get the guy at home.
Well,
there was guys picking dandelions, the whole story. And that's the way it was for the first couple of years in Sebringville. And then, then we started getting a little better, and I made the move to Stratford. Jody went to Mitchell, and then we kind of grew up from there. But the real push for me was probably my brother. So we went to a tournament in, I was going to say it was my first year Pee-wee. And we went to a tournament in New Hamburg, and we won the game. And I was all happy, I was pitching, we won. And I said to my brother, unfortunately my parents were gone at a ball tournament somewhere. Dad coached my mom. And so my brother had to drag me everywhere. And I said, we got a party afterwards, in between games. We're going to go to the coach's house and have a swim, have something to eat. And he says, like hell we are. He said, get your ass in the truck. I said, why? Where are we going? He goes, we're going back to the ballpark. He said, I ain't going to come watch you pitch like that ever again. So I went back home to Sebringville. So half an hour drive back to Sebringville, and pitched for about an hour and a half. And he completely changed my whole motion.
Really?
And he would not get me off the diamond until I fixed what he didn't like.
Wow. So Donnie, was he obviously he was a pitcher, or he knew how to coach pitching. Did he play at any level himself? Like
he played in the ISC as well.
Okay.
He played a bit with Owen Sound, and Aurora had a team at that time, so with O'Brien's and that.
Yeah.
So he played there 2 or 3 years, I guess, in Owen Sound. But he was always able to hit. He could switch hit. I remember him hitting 3 home runs in one game, and 2 from the left side and 1 from the right side. I was like, what the hell?
That's awesome, man. So obviously your brother was a big motivation factor for you, but I know I ask this question a lot too to pitchers and to hitters. So back when you were going up through the levels and Pee-wee and midget and all this stuff, were there any pitchers that were older that you looked up to, or that might have done some pitching clinics for you, or, just some guys that inspired you to pitch and get better?
Honestly, it was probably my brother. One of those things where monkey see, monkey do, but I wanted to be better.
Right.
So he was good, and I wanted to be better.
Yeah.
Right. And that just fueled me. So, I mean, he was always great. He would catch me and I'd catch him.
Yeah.
So there's 4 years difference in us. Right. And once I got to midget, I figured out I didn't like catching anymore. Ball started moving too much, and there's enough of this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was a big motivational factor for me for ball for sure. There wasn't a lot of pitching clinics, that kind of stuff when I grew up. Mm-hmm. It was more, go out and learn on your own and figure it out yourself. But, as I got older and older, then, you see the Todd Martins, the Darren Zach, and, Undy and those guys, and you go, I wonder if I could ever do that. But I was always pretty content playing an intermediate level and having fun and having success there. And then Dave Bailey actually approached Jim Hallman after we won NAFA about starting the Hallman team back up, because it hadn't ran for a few years.
Okay.
So if it wasn't for him and Mellon and Chubbs going to Jim, I probably wouldn't have never played senior ball.
Wow, because that was my next question, was how did that intermediate, local circuit for you turn into? Was it a big break? Was it someone putting a word in? Was it a new team forming? And so that was the rejuvenation of the Hallman Twins team. And I remember when Bags was back. That was in 2003, you said, right?
Yeah.
And that was actually funny enough when Hilly and I broke into the ISC for the very first time and started to get an understanding of what that league and circuit is like, who some of the top teams and players were. But we didn't jump on a team that was as legendary as the Hallman Twins organization, and then what they would turn out to be with the Kitchener River Sharks down the road, all of which we were a part of. But what was that like for you, that first season, suiting up on that team, getting to go on the circuit and play in these tournaments?
It was pretty good. So if I step back a bit, so when I played in Sebringville, there was still quite a few that played in South Perth that played like in Owen Sound, well, like Dale Levy, for instance. So, I mean, he always played against me in St. Mary's. So that was my test. How am I going to fare out against Doug Levy, Dale Levy, all the guys that are playing at the senior loop, and I'm not, right? So during the games, as soon as they come up, you always find a little extra just to see if you can get it by these guys and how you're going to fare out. And I fared out pretty well against most of those guys growing up. So I thought, you know what, I think I'll be okay. Strictly because nobody knows me, right? So the first year I thought, okay, it should be all right. Nobody knows who the hell I am. And the only problem is I'm not a real intimidating guy when I walk out in the mountain at 5'7", right? It's not Cheese walking out there at 6'8".
Yeah.
So there wasn't a big intimidation factor for me walking out on the diamond, but it was just
until you see the first inside lifter go by your chin, and then okay, this guy can huck at Hilly.
Yeah. Then you got to fucking shake hands with him after the game.
Yeah. Let's see what this little guy does. And geez, you're going back. I didn't have to ice my hand because of the game, because of the handshake going through. But so that kind of gave you your test coming up through, and that's
when I
a pretty
went
good
in
test.
for 03, I kind of went in. I think most of the guys know I really have kind of a don't give a fuck attitude, right? Like, I don't really care who I'm facing. I'm going to throw the same if I'm facing Jim, Bob from nowhere, or yourselves, right? Like, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't look at the caliber of player I'm playing against. I just look at it, that's an opponent, and I got to try to get out.
And I think that's part of the mentality you have to have as a top pitcher, really. Like, so once you start getting eaten up inside, like, oh God, we're coming around to this guy's coming to bat now, or God, tomorrow morning we're playing this team just to get to the finals, or whatever the case is. And I think once you start getting up in your noggin like that, I think you're screwed.
Yeah, I agree. And I never had that issue.
Yeah.
I just let the catchers do their job and throw what the hell they want.
That's right. I was just going to say, if you give up a hit or a bomb, it's the catcher's fault, right? Because he called it.
Absolutely. Well, you never see the problem is you never
100%.
see the losing catchers in the paper, just the pitchers.
Yeah,
that's right.
But that opens the door to where I want to go next, fellas. See, Segway Steven, they call me around here, going through the door of talking about some of these catchers and 1-2 punches, right? Because you started just before the prawn era kicked in, right?
Yeah.
So there were some of these loaded up teams and whatnot.
Yeah.
But you got the pitch as your career went along from that 2003, and I'll kind of move up through to that 2008 when the Kitchener River Sharks formed, and that was really the first, or one of the first, significant roster changes because of the prawn era. Some teams were folding, some teams were merging, and then there was the prawn pitching rule. And when I look back at your career, a lot of what I associate you, aside from the 4 ISC titles, 3 ASAs, playing on winning 3 Canadians and the Pan Am qualifier, that all speaks for itself, is you were a part of some really legendary 1-2 combinations. You pitched with Todd Martin, you pitched with Adam Folkard, you pitched with a bunch of people along the way. Is that when you look at your career, knowing how intense you are and wanting the ball every game, how was that dynamic like for you on a top team, sharing the rubber with some of the best to ever pitch?
At the start, it was kind of like, I wonder if I'm going to get the ball, that kind of attitude. Like, you're bringing all these guys in, so I might get an inning or two here and there. And I was okay with that for the first part. And then I learned a lot. Yeah. So, you guys might think I just sit and joke around the bench, but I'm actually listening quite a bit. I might not be a hay spike kind of guy, like asking 100 questions, but I'm listening all the time. And when these guys like Todd Martin, Dean Holine, Todd Martin, Frank Cox, Paul Court, like Adam Folkart, like you got to learn, right? They've played it how many years prior to me even coming in? I came in at 29 years old to the ISC circuit. So I'm coming in pretty late. So I just get to sit and listen and try to soak up everything and physically watch what they're doing on the diamond. I mean, I recall the first time meeting Marty and we might have had a couple drinks the night before, and he was on the mound, and things were going wrong, and whatever.
Yeah, right. It
didn't phase anything, right? Like when it came to the big game, he was still there, ready to play.
Right. Absolutely.
So I learned a little that I might not have to push quite as hard against certain things or teams to save a little bit for the bigger teams, right? So I learned a little bit here and there along the way, and then I finally got to use it. I think I said to you on the weekend, I was always kind of an insurance policy on most teams, I would think. If Marty gets hurt, it's okay backup. If Adam gets hurt, I'm still a good enough backup, right? Like the teams that behind you, the players that are on the diamond, like you can afford to give up some hits. You're going to get runs.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about that too much, right?
Yeah. And then aside from, all the pitchers that you shared the circle with, you look at the catchers you got to throw to as well. You're talking Craig Crawford, Sean O'Brien, Jason Sanford, Patty Shannon, and also Ryan Boland there at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had my two favorite catchers probably growing up for sure. Like through that circuit were definitely Sandy and Patty.
Right.
Those two just knew exactly what I wanted to throw. Like, I know you always say catchers are calling the game, but as a pitcher, you know yourself. As a pitcher, you're in your head going, I want to throw this pitch. And if the catcher doesn't put it down, now you're shaking heads and you're doing whatever, right? Just throw that pitch. But I never had to do that. Every time I was on the diamond with those two catching, it didn't matter. If I had in my head I wanted to throw a lifter outside, they were calling it. So it made my job on the mound real easy.
Yeah, I think those two guys with you, just as you said it, because it was such an in-sync relationship with those guys. And you could tell you guys are buddies too, knock around and it was very, very effective. But I find it interesting the way you look at it as an insurance policy, because yes and no. In some regards, you really need to have that solid guy that you don't want one injury to ruin your entire season, especially with everything that goes involved. So 100% being the guy that can come in and do the job if the number one, starts to get banged up or gets hurt. But then it's just the very effective sharing of the load, especially when the seasons that we played back then. And then there was, you might play County Materials or the Patsies 3 weekends in a row. And you don't want to give them the same look every single time you meet. You're going out there, and then you're getting to share the load around that. But it's all a build-up, as we say, to those major tournaments at the end. And when we
absolutely.
So when you won the first of your back-to-back, well, we did it in 08, 09, and that was when Frank Cox got the ball in the final, or Marty and Frank Cox were kind of sharing the load in the final in 08. But you would have been down the line warming up when all that happened as well.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. And I was always known more in this time as more of a closer, right? Because I could throw the ball pretty hard.
Yeah.
So for me to come in once they got tired or whatever, there was still a few mile an hour difference. So I became effective as that 2-3 inning guy. And I relish that role. I have no problem with that role.
Well,
A lot
it's
of
a
people
game-changing
like it,
role
but
down
for
there.
me, I like it.
I think today, this day and age, I think it's a more prominent role. I think
Yeah,
that,
so do I.
it's the games where one guy is going 7 innings, sometimes 8 or 9, 10 innings if it goes extras. I think it's they're few and far between.
Well, let's just look at those finals that we're talking about that you've been in. And, well, we can look just back to last year, Hilly, what happened in our championship game and the number of pitchers and how Elsie and the staff managed that with that sole purpose of not wanting to go one batter too long and see the big game slip out of your hands. But in that 08 championship game, starting pitcher goes down. In the 09 championship game, Marty had his hammy. And we're playing against some damn good teams in the winner take all game. That's when you can look down and look around and say, we got options here. We got a chance with anyone that goes out on the mound. That trickles down through the team, because how many times have you got all your eggs in one basket and that pitcher goes down, and then the team attitude is like, well, we're fucked now because we're going to have to get a lot of runs or whatever. And it's not any sort of disrespect about who's going to be coming in, but it's just the team wasn't structured to have that player go down. And as much as you talk about that being the insurance policy and all that, in your career, those games didn't really just go with this. The starting pitcher is going to go in and the number one is going to finish that game. I don't think any of those 4 ISC title games that you're in were, as the season started out, planned to be who was going to be on the mound, were they?
No, not at all. I mean, even looking back at 08, as you guys know, we were, playing county every weekend. And it became we're going to hide our ace, Todd, right? So I ended up throwing against county more than anybody in the damn game, I think.
Yeah.
Every time we played them, here you go, here's the ball, go get him. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
They had to do that with me when I was with Town Line. They wanted to hide Tony Richardson from County Materials, and they hauled me in out of left field. I had to go put my goalie gear on, and I only gave up 17 runs, so I did pretty well. But it was. Yeah. There was a lot of that going on back then.
Yeah, and we with Kitchener, with the Hallman twins, and with the River Sharks when we combined. I mean, look at our staff. We always had 3 guys, if not 4, that could go in, right? Like there was lots of times. One year was at 09 that we had Marty, Dino, and myself.
Yeah.
And then the other years it was, Marty, Frankie, myself. Like we had 3 guys, so we could spread it out a little bit to try to prevent somebody from prawning as well. So you could kind of keep your team together. Right. I think that was a big thing for us to do with our staff.
You mentioned how to pitch against county a lot. There was another particular powerhouse, the Patsies, that you guys played quite a bit against back in the day. I remember a particular highlight of your career against the old Patsies, if you'd like to share.
Yeah, that one's number 1 on my list. Like I've had a few perfect games, but that one means the most because I mean that was at the highest level against one of the best teams out there at that time for sure. And everything just kind of fell into place. Like I honestly, going into that game, didn't feel like I was throwing at my best. I thought, God, I'm not throwing that hard. Like what's going on? This isn't going to go well. And then things just kind of kept cruising through. And I remember Lolly, he wasn't feeling 100%. So he came out of the game, I believe it was right field, pulled himself because he didn't want to have a, trip or not get to a ball. So, I mean, he's on my back there, it was a team effort, but it was that one there I won't forget.
It was in Allentown, right?
Yeah. And that was, Rona, I still say, gave me the perfect game because the last swing he did was lazy, and it was like, here you go, have it.
Oh, yeah?
And that was the last out.
Don't tell people that. He swung from the shoes. He swung from the heel.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
I also remember that tournament. That was 2007, 2008. I remember you guys had quite the battle in the semifinal game to get to the Patsies, if you do recall.
Do you remember that on that back baseball diamond, and we had to play the farm, and we went in, and Hilly Hilly got on the mound and we beat the friggin' doors off him, man. I think
Well,
Blair had a home run. I had a home run. But
well,
Go ahead.
I remember. So we didn't have Corey Grew. We didn't have Corey this weekend. That something happened up in BC.
Right.
He couldn't make it. So I don't even know if Saba was there. I think it was just me and Schweier. And Schweier, we played the Patsies right before you. And geez, they went through. Robbie Scheller was with him at that point. Musey was with him. Anyway, we beat him in like 9 innings, like 15-14 it was. Right. So Rod goes, Hilly. I'm like, oh gosh. Warm up. You got the next game. I was like, all right. So who are we playing? Fucking Kitchener. Perfect. Number 1 team ranked or whatever the hell you were. So anyway, I was cotton on with Robbie Schweier. I said, listen, whatever happens anyway, I said, I'm not going to give up 14 runs. Right. What just happened there? Anyway, so by the time we're shaking hands, it was 15-1 we lost. And the only guys that hit home runs off me were the Newfies, Blair and Lolly.
Yeah, it was wicked. I remember that. There's a couple of stories from that tournament that stand out to me. Actually, that one being one that was funny, but I didn't find out this till after. I think I was like 22 years old when he joined that team. I think it was 2000. Yeah, it was 2007, Donnie, was it? 23.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
2007, 2008, whatever that year was. And we go down there, and Denny Bruckert, he told me this after the final game. But apparently he had a friend that was a scout for the Philadelphia Phillies, and he told him to come scout me out for whatever reason. And the fucker wouldn't show up for the 15-1 semifinal game where it lit Hilly up and a couple of doubles and a home run. He comes into the championship game. We're facing Adam Folkart, and I go, I think, 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts and a chopper back to the pitcher. So anyway, I don't even know if he got to the chopper after pitcher. He was fucking gone anyway. But I do remember that game. I'm out playing right field, and then there was a ball. I don't know if I was running to cover up something. It was late in the game, and I stepped on the sprinkler head and rolled over my ankle. And you had a perfect game going at this point. And anyway, I couldn't really run, and they had Travis Wilson coming up. And Travis Wilson, as a right-handed batter, was one of the guys that I hated being in right field for, just the way he hit those tailing line drives all the time. Like it was never right at you. It was going into a gap, or you're always trying to make that curving catch towards the right field line. So anyway, Dan Loney went in for me in the 7th inning, and Travis Wilson hit a sinking line drive right in front of that sprinkler head, and Dan Loney made a diving catch to save the perfect game. It was unfriggin' believable. Do you remember that, Donnie?
I do, yeah. I remember him making the catch, and it was just like, whoo, thank you. Yeah. I mean, but that's just playing for your teammates, right? Like, do what you got to do to get the outs.
No, Donnie, it was a goddamn prophecy on my end. I saw that happen. No, but that was wicked, man. And we all go in because that's, there's no joke to run over the Patsies as a perfect game. And that was wicked. We all went bonkers, and I remember everyone going in on the huddle, and that was pretty special.
Yeah, that one definitely meant a lot to me. Just gave me a little bit of accreditation, right? Yeah. Something that I never really got. I was kind of always the underdog. I was good in intermediate, but that gave me some accreditation that, hey, I can play this game, and I can play with the best.
And they were a powerhouse. They were as good as what was in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so we need to get into the 2011 season. It was probably, with you being on the rubber, would have to go down as your most successful, memorable year in terms of championships won as the starting pitcher. So I'll kind of go in order of the tournament schedule that year. So we'll just go right to the ISC tournament. And who was that one? Adam. This is with Jarvis now.
2011.
They had already won in 2010, right? So this was their second.
Yes. Yeah.
And so Adam was on the mound.
They beat me in Midland in 2010. I was on the mound for the loss with Kitchener.
Right.
That's who beat me. I do believe I gave up a couple home runs in that last inning that wasn't real happy about. Yeah. Might be a guy sitting there that got one of them.
Oh, Hilly there. Or was it? Oh, where? When was that?
Oh, maybe you weren't with them.
No, I
I
wasn't
can't
with them.
remember. I gave up back-to-back jacks.
No, I was
I'm
probably
trying
Bradley.
to figure.
I was with Chicago, New York that year. Me and Hilly.
Yeah.
We finished third.
Yeah,
you guys
that's right.
beat us in the.
You guys beat.
Go to the final
Yeah,
game.
they beat
Yeah.
us. Yeah, that was extra innings. Beat us 8 innings.
But we can get to all the home runs I hit off you, Donnie, now in a minute. But
It shouldn't take long.
so, but you go to that final, and it's what we talked about earlier, right? I guess the game plan going in was that Adam would go and pitch every single inning of that final. Get him there, give him the ball, and see what goes. But you got Donnie Scott there, and then can you walk us through? We know how special that tournament was for you. Any teammate that played with you that year, that's what they talk about, was winning it with you and being a part of that. Do you mind sharing with our listeners what went on there and why that was so special for
you? Again, just knowing that basically everybody was looking at me, right?
Yeah.
So Adam was down. So I think it was the third game of the weekend or of the week. And Adam said, I'm going to throw. So he went out to start and threw 1 inning. And I don't know if he broke 65 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But they didn't get anything off him. He came back and said, I can do that again. And the coaching staff decided that, no, he's not going to do that again. So that was my inning off. But I got to play, like you look at the talent that's on the diamond, there's not as much pressure on you as you think, right? Like you go out there, I know everybody's, I'm in. So mentally you can focus for every game. You know what's going to happen. You go into the park knowing you're getting the ball. So you just kind of prepare yourself for that game. And then, you went through the tournament. We had some success. We ended up getting through some shortened inning games, which was great because at that time I would have been 37. So I was getting a little older for
Not really.
throwing every
Young
inning.
man.
Young
Young
man.
man.
By today's
Young man.
standard.
Yeah, young man. This is
For every inning at 37, I mean, Cleary and those guys at Andrew, they're 38 now. So, I mean, they're going to try it too. But for me, it was very enlightening. Like getting through the whole week was the easy part. It was the finals, right? We're coming up against you guys. I got 12 Advil in me because I can't walk. My groin's screwed. My arm hurts like hell. And my grandfather had passed away the night before.
Yeah.
So for me, that one is so important strictly because, I got to prove that I can do it, but I dedicated all that to my grandparents.
Yeah.
Everything I did was for them. So what made it tough the final day was we go to practice, everybody's on the diamond, and everybody on the team comes to me and they got the black bands.
Yeah.
And ask, can we wear these for you? And I'm like, oh boy. So, I mean, that's pulling on the heartstrings. I got a couple tears running, and I'll go a little bit back in time here with my grandparents. So this is what means so much to me is in 93, I was playing with in the Canada Summer Games, and they were in Kamloops, BC. So I go out there, and my grandma and grandpa are there with the motorhome. And I'm like, holy jeez, they drove all the way to freaking BC to watch this game. And then I told them that, hey, guess what, Grandpa, do you want to go for a drive? He goes, where are we going? I said, well, my Steamville team disqualified for the Canadians. They're in PEI. He said, holy fuck, Don, that's across Canada. But we pull into PEI, and there's my grandparents in the motorhome at the ballpark waiting for us to get there.
That's amazing,
so, I mean,
man.
They were in Newfoundland when I went out there as a junior. They've never been, so they came out. They spent the week there, watched ball, toured around. I mean, that's just what they did. They just loved to come and watch any of the sports, hockey, ball, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
So that's what made that one pretty important. That and, I got the ball and I got to prove that, hey, I can do it. And I'll tell you, there's one thing in that game I remember very vividly at the after we won, Ryan Wolf, I always played with, Wolfie is Wolfie. He's an idol for many people. Ambassador of the game all the way through, right? Like just one of those guys. And I remember him grabbing me by the shirt, and he just grabbed a hold of me, pulled me right in, and he says, "I'll play behind you every fucking day of my life."
Yeah.
And I won't forget that ever.
Yeah.
Like
amazing,
that
man.
just was like, okay, I made it now.
Yeah.
Ryan Wolf just yelled that in my face. I made it.
Captain Canada tells you that, then yeah, you've made it.
Yeah, you can take that to the bank. And we were on the other side of that loss, right? It was a 4-3 ball game. It was a great game, and then you were pitching your ass off, really intense. But you had some teammates on the other team as well who were friends and knew what you were going through. It didn't change the fact that we wanted to go out and mercy you.
Yeah, beat my ass.
Right, but it was when you look out and you're on the sidelines after a loss and you see the other team celebrate. Sometimes it's very bitter, but everyone on our team said we had to lose. You can at least look out and be happy that the winning team had you pitching for them, and it was incredible when you talk about that ISC championship game. This is a storyline that goes throughout, especially with the guys that were around, the fans, and all that. And that really cemented you as the man that can get it done in those games. And then we fast forward from there to the Canadians, and it's an Owen Sound, and we were hitting our stride with Newfoundland that year. Still never got over the hump, but we were ready to win. And then we went out against you guys in the final. And this is when they brought in Todd and Wolfie and Obi and all these guys late. And then,
if anybody wants to hit the skip button, now's the time to do it. Go refill up your coffee.
Yeah, there we go. That's right. Boys, you can cut this part out anyway. We're just doing it for Donnie, right? I told him to talk about it. No. But we get there's another 4-3 ball game, Donnie, and Todd started that one.
Yeah.
Right, and we got I don't know, Hilly, if we got up in that game or not. You're better at this than me. But
I think the boys are up. I think Kitchener was up, and I think Blair and Brad both hit home runs, and then I think that was when Marty came out, and then Donnie come in. I believe maybe around the fifth, sixth.
Yeah, it was around the 6th. I was wrapped up tighter and like it's a week after the Worlds, right? Yeah, and I just won every game in the Worlds, and then so I have my groin like great big elastic band wrapped around my waist and around my legs, trying to keep my groin together. And Marty walks off the diamond and he says, "Scotty, if you can break 60, these guys will be fucked." Because he was done. He had thrown, I don't know how many games prior to that, because I couldn't. Mm-hmm. So he had thrown a shit ton. I'll just come in for a few innings, I think we told him. I think he threw 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, that was unbelievable, the whole, how that thing came together. Wolfie coming in, hitting the home runs, Red just being as clutch as he is. And we'll probably talk a little bit about Red in a minute because I know how close you guys are. But I remember that last at bat for me. That tournament changed everything for me after that because I
think the last at bat might have been the last out, right, of that game. Yeah,
it was, and that's why it did. Yeah, you don't need to go to every goddamn detail here, Donnie. Fuck. But yes, you guys are up 4-3. We got a runner on second base. I'm up, and I've had a good tournament up until that point. But this is when, for me at that point, all right. Sometimes maybe you look at your average, or you had a good tournament, but at that point, failing or getting beaten. I didn't get myself out. You got me out. You struck me out, and we've had a couple of those battles over the years. But that was devastating. We lost 4-3. You feel like you let your whole province down, and then that was a long off season. It really was about you got to be ready to perform in that moment at any given time. So that as much as 2 4-3 losses in about 2 weeks, and you're on the friggin' mound. So it's I like you, but I don't know how much I like you after those two. But that was your guys' three-peat, right?
Yeah, that was 3 for Kitchener that year. But going back to that game, I still think we actually looked at each other and nodded. We did. All right, here we go.
Yep,
it's on. I'm going to throw it as hard as I can. You're going to swing as hard as you can. One of us is going to win. Yep. And that's what made it fun for me. the challenge of batters players players you don't know. It was just fun. So I remember that vividly, that game. I was on the mound and just come back from the Worlds. And at that time, the Canadians, you had to toe up, right? 2 feet in rubber.
Yeah.
So I remember I stepped back about 1.5 feet.
They wouldn't let you guys cheat back then.
And but I went back about 1.5 feet. I'm in my paws. I'm like, shit. Screw it. I'm just going to throw it. So I threw the ball. They never called an illegal pitch. So I finished that game, well off that rubber. There was nowhere near
protest.
Is the statute of limitations on protests up, Hilly? Yeah. We'll check that out after. I'll make a few phone calls. But that was a pretty, put a bow on a pretty special season for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was definitely a highlight season for me.
Yeah. And then me and Hilly both said, well, fuck that. We're going to start playing with them, I guess. Right. We got the team up to go with Team Canada down in Colombia.
Yep.
And went down there. And that was in October, I believe, of 2012. And we've talked about that trip on the podcast a bunch of times. We don't need to go through all the ins and outs of that. But you got most valuable pitcher down there. You threw your ass off. So that must have been pretty special to win in Team Canada uniform.
Oh, absolutely. I still got that plaque that I have no idea what it says on sitting in my room. But
you can Google Translate those these days, Donnie. You just type that into Google Translate. That's how we talk to the guys from Argentina on our team.
But yeah, so for me, that was going back to the start of that week with that Colombia team, there was a lot of youth pitching at that one. And I remember going to talk to the coaches, and I said, "Listen," I said, "What's your plan here? Because I have a feeling I might get abused a little bit." And they said, "Yeah, we're gonna mix all these guys in. It's kind of a tryout for everybody here, and once we get to a certain point, we're basically gonna just give you the ball until you're done." I said, "Okay, then we have to talk about our stretching." Because if I have to run and do all that shit that they're doing before warm-up, I'm not going to throw at the end of the week. Because I don't stretch. And I remember Johnny saying, well, you're not going to stand over there watching, having a cigarette. I said, well, where do you want me to hide? He's like, just come up the stands with us while they go do that. I said, okay.
This friggin' preferential treatment for the pitchers, Hilly. You got to stop.
Oh, I couldn't walk. So the very first year I went with Team Canada in 2008, Bongo, I think, was the trainer. And I signed up on the board, and he's working. He said, what's the matter? And I said, I can't move my legs from my ass to my ankles. So he's stretching me out, and he's rubbing all this stuff. I'm trying to work it out, and he stops about halfway through, and he goes, you haven't even thrown an inning yet. I said, no. I said, it's all this goddamn stretching. I can't even walk. Because I'm not really much for stretching, as most people know.
What did Boomer Brush say? Todd Martin always says, you ever see a deer stretch? That's all we used to say back in the day. But, that was great, man. We got to do that and win down there. That was all of our first time winning with Team Canada outside of that Tri-Nation series back in 2008. But it was a first, international event. But
it was pretty cool going down there.
Funny story I remember from that. I guess it was opening ceremonies, and I don't know who it was. It might have even been Colombia coming out, and they had these dress shirts on, right? these kind of fancy dress shirts with, like, I don't know, polka dots and all this stuff all over. I remember Donnie saying, I really like those shirts. So anyway, never thought no more of it, right? So then we win the final day, and we all go back to the hotel. We shower up. We got a few beers. I was trust Donnie with one of these shirts. He made a trade with somebody.
That is wicked. See, the stuff that you remembers, Hilly, man, that I can't remember. That's why, hey?
Yeah.
Bob Cole and Harry Neal over here, my son. But we're winding down here, and there's so many cool things that we get to talk to you about. But 2015, when we got a chance to suit up with the Chiefs, we were going for our three-peat at that point in time, and that was very special year for all of us here. We talked about 2015, but when we talk about that ISC championship game, and I look at it from your perspective, you're playing with Adam again, you're throwing to Sandy, and you got Big Red Dale Levy on your team there again. You guys being two of the anchors from the veteran standpoint, and we won that championship game. That's when Hilly hit the home run to put us ahead, and we got to celebrate that one. What was that like winning with that group, knowing that was a three-peat that we got to be a part of, and doing it with Dale Levy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Red and I grew up playing junior together, and we developed a pretty close relationship. Like, it's easy for me to say he's my best friend. Like, I would go through a wall for Red, and I know he'd do the same for me. And for us to finally win one together, like it brought up in 2008, the whole prawn things, and Red ended up getting released to go to Aspen, I believe, is where he went. And then when us winning that, that and beating Red, that one kind of hurt. It touched me a little bit because I wanted to win it with my buddy, and I got to do that there. I mean, I wasn't in 2015. I really wasn't a huge factor in the Worlds on the win on that. But to be on the bench and celebrating with a group of people that you've got to know and love, and especially with Dale Levy being my best friend growing up, going through things together, that one there, it was just like, we did it together, and we did it. And that meant a lot to me, having that with him.
Another dusty moment here on Dust Up.
Yes. Kleenex ad, boys.
It's true.
No, it was wicked.
It's true. I was just thinking, if I was a wall and I heard Don Scott and Dale Levy said I'd run through a wall, I'd grow a door.
Yeah.
That'd be frightening.
That's right. Yeah. But that was, I'd grow a door, wouldn't you? Yeah, wicked. See? Well, I tell you what, Hilly, we got to start soundbiting Hilly's. It got to be a thing again, boys. But that's wicked, Donnie. Before we let you go and wind her down, I do have written down here, just because you grew up and you were a part of that era. You don't see it as much anymore, but there's been a couple old Donnie Scott beanballs thrown over the years. What was your outlook when it came to dotting guys or seeing players on your team get hit? Because the rivalries were a little bit more intense in that regard back in that 2003 to call it 2010. 11.
Yeah, I mean, we always had a rivalry with County. You're from Canada. There's a whack load of Kiwis, so right away you don't like them. Yeah. And for me, they're all 90% of them are right-handed batters. So that's perfect for me because I love going up and in on a righty. So, I think, were you on the team in Aurelia? I don't think so yet. I think that was the year before. And things just didn't go well for me that game. I hit Patty Shannon twice. I hit Donnie Hale once. I hit Kia maybe once. Like, I hit 4 or 5 guys that game. And it was a 1-0 game. Like, we were running a game, and I'm dotting people left and right, and I only meant to hit one of them. They just kept
Which one?
In.
Which one? So they know.
Yeah, like.
But
I remember Ronnie White playing first base, and he walks the ball over to me, and he says, "Hey, Scott, are you planning on hitting any more tonight?" I said, "Well, I don't know why." And he goes, "Well, there's a great big fucker standing over my shoulder that's going to come out and kill you. And the best I'm going to be able to do is trip him."
Yeah. And it did. It got intense back, and there were probably more.
We went to Allentown, and that was with Cordy. Cordy started, and we were playing on the ball diamond, like not the main diamond, but the actual baseball diamond. And Cordy started.
That's the diamond that Hilly gave up 15 home runs on, or 15 runs on, by the way, if anyone's wondering.
Yeah, same diamond. So
all I wanted to do was keep it under 14 so I could chirp Schweier.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Well, go ahead.
but
Don.
I remember we were playing county, and I'm coming into the game, and Toddy Martin, he comes out and he goes, "Scotty, you gonna hit anybody?" I said, well, we were already down a few runs. And I'm like, "Nah, there's no point." He goes, "Okay, perfect. I'm gonna go have a smoke then," because he had to walk out back then, right? To have a smoke. But that was the year that Dale Levy was playing center field, and that was the year that remember what the Kiwis would, if they didn't like the pitch, they'd puff the chests up and they'd be staring at you at the mound and all that. And all I remember is Dale Levy yelling from center field, "Fucking hit that son of a bitch!"
Oh man.
But yeah, we had some battles. I mean, even in our league, we had bench clearing brawls in league, and it just what happens, right? You know, don't let me off. You let me off, I'll hit you. I don't care.
I don't know if I ever got a Donnie Scott beanball. Did you, Lolly?
I hit you once.
Did you?
Wasn't yeah? I wanted it inside. I got you right in the elbow.
Did you try it or no?
No, I didn't try to hit you.
Okay, cool. Unlike some of our previous guests, Dean Holline.
That's right. Yeah. I don't think he hit me. He's too busy striking me out, or all you gotta do with Donnie is just give him that little nod, right? He thinks sometimes it is it's the nod of respect and nod of let's go, but it's also the nod of we're buddies here. Don't fucking put one in my head here. Right. So, that was we're talking about insurance policies. That nod was my insurance policy getting in the batter's box.
Yeah, we're cool, Donnie. We're cool. We're cool.
Right.
So, do you remember the first year Patty Shannon came to play with us?
Yeah.
And I think we're in Jarvis tournament. And he comes into the room in that fucking scuba suit. And
yes.
sits down. And he looks around in the room. We're all in there having a beer. And he looks around and he says, "Well, doesn't look like I'm going to need my elbow pad this year, does it?" And somebody says, "Why?" And he goes, "All the fuckers that hit me are sitting in this goddamn room."
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. That broke the ice pretty good, got him involved.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
got the guys laughing because everyone's wondering what kind of guys or how the dynamic is going to be.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be a pretty special group that we've talked a lot about. But Donnie,
absolutely.
It's been awesome to sit down and chat with you again, to see it over the past couple of weeks. We've been talking about this one now, with going on probably 5 or 6 months. I think it was Red's 50th birthday. We were lining this one up, and we finally got to do it.
Red, he's 51 today.
51 today? Look at that. See?
Yeah.
It was almost like it was meant to be lined up like this. And happy birthday, Dale
absolutely.
Levy, guest
Happy
and friend of
birthday,
the
Red
show. But getting you on here, going through all this stuff that you've done, really appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure sharing the time with you, buddy, and appreciate you coming on to share your stories. And sounds like we'll still be seeing you around the yard.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 weeks, I'll be in Kitchener. See you.
And that rule still applies. Pitchers that buy beer win championships, Donnie. So remember that when you're out in the beer tent. And that's it, folks. Another great episode, Hilly, and we got Lucas and Nick here. A little bit of rum ragged to take us out.
Get out of here! I told you, Mr. Drama.
I used to be a ladies' man, but I'm a man now. For courting 6 girls all at once, they used me.
Say bye-bye baseball!
My mother said it was naughty, but I said if it's naughty, sure it's also good.